Welcome into Ask MandR episode 369. On this episode, we'll be discussing the new Gingerbread AT-AT, the $1,000 Death Star, its controversies, and my review of it, plus the new or not new Commander Fox torso, and more. If you have a question or topic for next week's episode, drop in the comments section down below, hit the like button while you're there, and let's get to it with our first question from Minecraft Nerd, who says, with the Gingerbread AT-AT now released / revealed, and it being a smaller size as a MIDI scale set, do you think the MIDI scale AT-AT rumored for January 2026 is still true? So the MIDI scale AT-AT might be January, might be March, might be April, but first half of the year. And yeah, I'm almost certain that rumor is still going to hold true. I don't think this gingerbread version has any bearing on it, other than maybe giving us a bit of a preview of what an AT-AT will look like in MIDI scale. So the 2026 set is rumored to have 525 pieces for $60, while the gingerbread version has 697 pieces for $60, plus that Darth Vader minifigure. So it starts to make you wonder if they do end up being the same size, how the heck they think they're going to get away with $60 on the 2026 version. But part of me thinks the design will still be quite different. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of extra pieces on the gingerbread version for decoration that we are not going to see on a regular version, and we're going to have the removal of the minifig. So I expect the design to actually be significantly different. I don't think it will be a copy and paste, given the significant piece count disparity and the price being the same. I just don't see it being the same, but I do think it will still be an AT-AT as a MIDI scale set next year. Hopefully, because it would be the first vehicle MIDI scale set. Like, that's not a spaceship, and I think we need that. We need to break through that barrier there. I want more of that kind of stuff going forward. I know it's an interesting clash, but honestly, these two really, even though they are the same vehicle, won't be competing with one another because of just how different the theming is. So I don't think you'll have much of an issue there if you're LEGO, and certainly for fans, like, they're not something that's also like exorbitantly expensive. It's not like you're choosing between two $1,000 sets or something. It's two $60 sets. You can probably get them both if you're a LEGO fan. That being said, I regrettably haven't had the time to discuss the Gingerbread AT-AT, and honestly, I see one flaw with it, and that's Darth Vader's eyes not being printed. If those were printed, you got a pretty flawless set. I know people are going to point out that the interior is small, but that comes with the territory. I like that they're doing a smaller scale AT-AT as a holiday version instead of a full-size $160 one. You know, like, I feel like that's too much, and so scaling it back and doing something smaller as like a special edition type of thing is really, really fun to me, and I just love a set like this, and I love that this is the direction that hopefully they'll continue to go in with future holiday sets, doing these reskins of vehicles. Obviously, it's like printing money for them. I think most people are really on board with this and really like this from the fan reaction that I've seen. So Gingerbread AT-AT, pretty much a perfect set. Next question from Elite WZ. He says, PSA, LEGO will not send you the new Commander Fox torso. I contacted LEGO customer service along with a picture of my pink Fox torso, and I was told they would not send a replacement, clarifying, quote, they have not made a new element, and quote, we've seen some chatter on social media, and quote, there's been a bit of confusion. I'm incredibly frustrated. And to add to this, Fire Stuff emailed customer support looking for the same thing and got a response saying that they understand his concern about the pink torso. However, the pinkish tone of the piece is not considered a quality issue. So LEGO doesn't consider the terrible Commander Fox to be a quality issue. What? And that should tell you everything you need to know about how LEGO thinks about their fans and their customers. It's funny, I go from the last question, I'm like, man, the Gingerbread AT-AT is awesome, I love it. Now it's just right back down to earth with this. I mean, they just can't stay out of their own way. Why is the pink torso on Commander Fox not considered a quality issue? It is objectively one of the worst quality issues you have outside of your design philosophies with things where you get things blatantly wrong, but that's just bad design work, not necessarily quality. But those words, it kind of depends on how you want to define those words when talking about LEGO. But quality, literally, the color of the print on the torso is really bad. It's pink when you advertise it as white. And so they're saying that they actually haven't changed the part, which tracks with what I actually kind of thought, because I swear, like many, many months ago, and this is backed up by the fact that I've seen a few people comment this, many, many months ago, I saw people saying they got a whiter torso than they had seen otherwise. And so LEGO's official response to this seems to be that the whiter torso is just a result of basically some ink being maybe a bit thicker on that particular day of production, and not that they went in and made any change to double print the white, which is kind of what I had thought and hoped they were doing, but obviously is apparently not what they are doing. So they now say they will not be sending out replacement parts to anybody, which I guess makes sense if realistically the part's going to end up being the same. I mean, I recall back with the 212th helmet back in 2022, I assumed that they would fix the print and you could order a replacement part and it would would be fixed, right? And that just never happened. Like, I did order replacement parts, and then they just came in the same way they already were. So now I had 3 more garbage helmets. I think the workaround to this, and I wouldn't recommend this, would be to lie to LEGO and say that the torso wasn't included in your box, and then maybe they'll send you another torso as a replacement for the torso that you didn't get. But even if you do that, the torso might not actually be fixed because LEGO didn't take any actual steps to fix it. It was just them getting lucky that it turned out a bit whiter than otherwise. But this also makes you wonder, why don't they do whatever they did on this particular day to make it whiter all of the time so that it's a little bit less bad than it is otherwise? All of these questions will never be answered because all of the Q&As that are run by ambassadors. And so I pulled up the picture of the one that we sell on MandRshop.com, and you can see just the day and night difference in the color on the torso. Like, it's wild that LEGO doesn't consider that a quality issue when they advertise it as just normal white anyway. So anyway, it appears to have not been fixed. It will never be fixed, and LEGO doesn't care, and that's what we learned today. But we already knew that, didn't we? Everyone deep down inside knew that. Next, from Brady, he says, do you think with the backlash from the UCS Death Star not being a sphere, will we get a playscale or 18 plus set of a full sphere Death Star similar to the custom from the Globe set? And if you're not familiar with what he's referencing, I took the LEGO Ideas Globe set and literally just made it gray, and therefore it's a Death Star basically. And I think LEGO will do this. I don't see why they wouldn't make a smaller, more affordable version of a spherical Death Star. It makes all the sense in the world for them to make that something that like most people can buy, you know, maybe the next $200 style UCS set, similar to the way they did the AT-AT this year. And in that way as well, I don't know if people pay attention to stuff like this, but it is immediately available at all of the retail stores. It's a UCS set that is not LEGO store locked, and so you could walk into a Target store on August 1st next year and buy a spherical Death Star, or maybe 2027 or something like that. But I think in the next couple of years, we will see something like that. I think it's also notable that the designers in like the big video about the Death Star, maybe it was one of the shill interviews that I watched, either way, the designers said that they knew going into this that this Death Star wouldn't necessarily be for everyone. And so I hope they consider making that other thing for everyone else, because the Death Star inherently is also big round ball, right? That is what the Death Star literally is. So you kind of got to make that for people that want that, right? It just kind of feels right. They've literally, I guess they made the promo a couple of years ago. I was going to say they've only made the one ball Death Star in 2005, but there was also the Planet set. So there's a few others out there, but really to scratch that itch for collectors, I think people want something a bit bigger, and that globe size and the price that would come along with that not being exorbitant, like $400 or $500, like something that's $200 would be really nice for a lot of people. Mr. Game & Watch says, right, so ask MandR, what was the purpose of the Troll Death Star video? So for anyone living under a rock, I was able to purchase a UCS Death Star's empty box from eBay, and I reviewed the set, and notably before the day that LEGO had actually revealed the set. So why did I fake review the Death Star? So first, I just want to dispel a couple of, I think, good theories, but wrong theories about it, just to have everyone on the same page. It was not to get LAN to release their reviews early. That wasn't going to happen as a result of a video like that. It was pretty obvious if you watched more than 5 minutes that I only had an empty box. Also, to anyone plugged in, you would have known an empty box was for sale on eBay a couple of days earlier. You can put 2 and 2 together, but then again, I mean, LAN is, LAN, so who knows? But that was not the intention. I didn't think that would ever be the result. And yeah, they also, I think, now operate a little bit more scared of people beating them to reviews, and so you might have noticed how quickly after the reveal date, the review date was, when historically it's not always that way. The other one was that I left it blank so I could fill it in later, and that I actually had the full set, and that I was just not showing it because LEGO would copyright it if I showed the full set or something, and that obviously wasn't true. Like, that's not why I did that or why there was nothing there. And also, when I actually make my review of the Death Star, none of that is getting reused. That entire video was its own project. It exists as its own thing. The only thing that will change in the future is the thumbnail and title of that video once I release my actual review of the Death Star. Although, a lot of that review was technically my review of the Death Star. Like, a lot of my thoughts and feelings are about right in there. I just don't physically have the thing, and my actual review will end up being a lot longer than 30 minutes, I think, given 30 minutes of air time. Does that work? I don't know. So reason number one is I thought it was an absolutely hilarious idea. Like, I was back and forth on a few different ideas, another one of which being like a faux designer interview revealing the Death Star, the way they, they'll pull the big blanket off a table for the ambassadors and everyone go, ooh, ah, oh my goodness.
But you don't say that.
I wanted to do something like that, but then I figured that, I don't know, maybe more in bad taste, and this was a lot funnier to me anyway. And so I was like, let me just do a full review, except it's of nothing. And I was like, this is going to be great. So I thought it was very funny, and I think most people also found it very funny. There are some people, of course, that didn't think it's funny, but like, get your head out of the mud. It's objectively one of the most hilarious things I could do, especially if you know me. Like, it's really funny. So we got that one out of the way. Like, it's funny, and that would have probably made me do it on its own. But of course, there's other motives. I mean, we got 10 years of the way that LEGO, I hate going back on this field, but the way, LEGO did me dirty many a times. Last year, they invited me to the Jedi Bob event and then lied to me. That alone would probably have motivated me to do this, let alone all of the other things. So yeah, there's a little motivation there. To me, it's objectively hilarious and crazy that like the biggest LEGO Star Wars channel is going to make a review of the empty box, and that's going to be the first time a lot of people see this set. And that's how their first initial impression is, right? Like, I just think that's also pretty crazy that that's how it's going to go these days. So for those few reasons, and maybe a couple more, like deep down inside, I don't know, but like those are the main ones. And honestly, it's mostly because it was really funny and I got the jump on them, and I wouldn't get the jump on them if they would have just treat me right and signed me up or whatever. So I think at its core, it's probably close to a 50-50 split of it is objectively hilarious and I like doing things because they are funny, and that was funny to me. And even if you didn't find it funny, it's funny. I don't care. And then of course, on the other side of things, like I just feel immensely disrespected. And because of that, I'm going to disrespect you back. And that's my way of doing it. I think like if I'm being my own therapist here, that's probably what it is at its core. So yeah, I don't know, just maybe too open there, but that's how it is. That's what it is. That's why it is. And I hope y'all enjoyed it. I think most people did enjoy it. It was very funny. Although the like-dislike ratio on that video is pretty bad. I don't know what it is. It might be like 85%. I'll put a screenshot up of it. So I expected that, but yeah, it was still very funny. I would do it again. I will do it again if the opportunity arises. I would never pass it up. Darko says, was it worth buying the UCS Death Star box for $200? Would you recommend this to any other LEGO Star Wars collectors? No, I would never recommend you buy an empty box for a set you don't own. There's no reason to do that. Like, maybe if you don't own the box to a set and you want the box, yeah, that makes sense. Like, I bought the Cloud City box empty before for $100 or $200 just to have it paired with my set. But otherwise, there's no reason you should ever be buying empty Lego boxes, in my opinion. Certainly not for $200. And I do want to set the record straight. It wasn't $200. It was a lot more than $200 because express shipping and tax exist, and the total price was $755. It was absurdly expensive. And was it worth it? Yeah, and not in the way that like I made a bunch of money on the video. Like, the video did break even, which I'm very happy with because like I didn't want to throw away $800. That was also not the intention. But the video broke even, so we're good on that. But it was worth it more in a Batman type of sense of it's not about the money. Some men just want to watch the world burn, and after all these years, that's kind of where I found myself, unfortunately, in some cases, gotta sound a little crazy, but that's just how it is. So yeah, it was totally worth it. And now I don't know what to do with the box. I guess I'll give it to Orlando Brico. They're a third-party store that's near me that I do a lot of stuff with. And they'll just take the box. And then when someone eventually brings in a Death Star without a box, they'll just pair them together. And when someone buys it, they'll get both. Does that make sense? So 10 out of 10 experience, definitely worth it. And next from Ty, he says, do you think there's a huge investigation going on at the LEGO Ambassador Network right now over who sold you the UCS Death Star box? Obviously, whomever did it would be kicked from the program if caught, but do you think that they could also be in trouble with the law over any agreements they signed? As of, I believe, February or something, all of the ambassadors have to sign a non-disclosure agreement, confidentiality agreement. This was not something I was ever beholden to back in my day, so I'm not exactly sure how it works, but I am sure allowing your box to leak and be sold online would be a pretty big breach of that, especially being sold to LEGO's worst enemy, clearly, for some reason. I don't know. All I ever did was love you.
I love you.
I know.
But I suppose they legally could be in trouble, although I doubt LEGO would ever take it to that level. I certainly don't see it as something that would need to be taken to that level. I think it's a bit silly. After all, this is all over just a kid's toy, right? But would they be kicked from the program, perhaps? Well, this is not really public knowledge, and so I'll leave the names out of it because, I like the people involved. Like, a lot of the people that do LEGO content and are in the ambassador program are friends of mine and people I like and respect in the space, but there's this conflict, unfortunately, there with the third party. But anyway, would they be kicked from the program? And so to my knowledge, the last time, which was summer of 24, that an ambassador was caught selling their sets from the ambassador program. They all come with a not for sale sticker. It is one of the rules of the ambassador program that you are not supposed to sell the stuff that you get for free. You can give it away, you can do whatever like that, but you're not supposed to sell it. But the last time someone did that, they actually were doing it before the release date of the sets, which is crazy to do. Like, why would you do that? But they did that, and then from, you know, the outside looking in, more or less, they've only been given more opportunities from LEGO. They've been paid and flown out to Denmark to do events. I'm not going to get specific with what those are, but I'm very well aware of what's going on there, in my opinion. And so I just look at it as like, you know, I got in trouble for running my mouth a little bit, you know, and these people are breaking the rules, selling stuff before the release date and not getting in trouble and getting more opportunities and getting paid opportunities that I was never, you know, it blows my mind. I don't want to throw these people under the bus because, like, I like them and I've hung out with them and they're nice people, but I just look at the way LEGO treats everyone. I'm like, bro, you can't, how can you run your business like that and not get fired, right? The way that I've been treated over the years and seeing how people like do things like this and then they get treated, it makes me a little bit upset. Just a teensy weensy little bit.
How can you do this? This is outrageous. It's unfair.
Nathan, he says, what is your opinion on the response from the LEGO designer in the Brickset interview when he asked about the lack of dual molded legs, specifically C-3PO? Look, I'm going to make a whole video talking about what the designers have said about this new Death Star set. And what's interesting is I think the Death Star build and whatever is fine. It's nice. I like it personally. I can understand why some people don't like it, as we talked about. A lot of people wanted a sphere. However, the controversy to me is really in the minifigs for $1,000. You know, we're not getting dual molded leg on C-3PO. So what they said about C-3PO not having a dual molded leg is that adding that cost to a figure that might need to appear in a much smaller and cheaper set like C-3PO is not necessarily an option. Really, not an option. So in this case, we could not commit to having the dual molded leg become the standard design. So they kind of deflect it as the dual molded leg isn't the standard design, because if it was the standard design, it would have to be in everything, right? So cheaper stuff would have to have it too. But it's fine that it's not the standard design. If it's not, that's whatever. You're completely ignoring the idea that this is your most expensive product ever, and therefore, the non-standard design, the more premium design, should be in the more premium set. I'm going to say premium very weirdly, but dude, what are we on about? Like, the $6 keychain has a dual molded leg, much cheaper than the $1,000 Death Star gets a dual molded leg. Sorry to raise my voice at y'all like that. My blood pressure just went up a little bit. But he said that they have to prioritize, but they never specify with what. There's never an obvious, like, hey, we gave up this dual molded leg so that we could give you 50 printed bricks in the set, right? They don't say that. It's just always the vague prioritize or vague consistency, right? Which is another good one, which we'll get to in my full video about that, because the consistency argument continues to be unreliable for them. But I'm going to leave it there because I'm going to do a full video breaking down what I think have been some pretty disastrous interviews about the Death Star's minifigures specifically. I think the interview that Cesar gave about the set and all that stuff is fun stuff and good information, but asking the minifig guy about anything never seems to go well, unfortunately, and I'm really fed up with it because we're paying $1,000 for these sets and we're not getting the quality, and then we're getting bad answers. And mind you, all of these are probably things that LEGO forces these people to submit the questions for so they can screen them ahead of time and then have them fed to the designers who have probably already been given the questions so that they know what to answer, right? It's not probably something that they're caught off guard with. And you'll also notice in these interviews, and I should save this, but I'm here already. In these interviews, there's never really follow-up questions. You'll get these weird questions or answers like, we had to prioritize. And the brick set guy never goes, what did you have to prioritize? And it strikes me as odd. Man, I'm worked up about this. I can't wait to make that video. Chair Bear says, should I buy the 2025 UCS Death Star as an investment or skip it entirely? So, should you invest in the $1,000 Death Star? And I'm going to give you a crazy answer. I usually don't like talking about investing in LEGO sets. I don't think it's that interesting of a topic. Like, if you want to spend your money that way, do it. But the $1,000 Death Star does present an interesting investment opportunity, because if you look at the historical comp, I would say, in Cloud City, you could do really well on a $1,000 Death Star if it goes the way Cloud City did, where when released, not a lot of people were excited for it. I've said this many times, but I went to the LEGO store on release day to buy Cloud City 2018. 3 people were there, including myself, to buy the set. Like, if the set is that much of a flop, it will retire in relatively short order. Cloud City retired within a year and a half, and nobody will buy it along the way either, right? If they're not there on release day, they're not going to be there 3 weeks later lining up to buy it. And so it will be a set that doesn't sell a lot. And then if people come around to it in the future, and that's a big if, like people have come around to that Cloud City from 2018, and that's a big reason that its value has skyrocketed. It also had some exclusive figures that people really like and are really high quality. Like, does this Death Star quite meet that, right? You got the Hot Tub Stormtrooper, you've got the Imperial Dignitary, among others. And then there's other figures like the Farm Boy Luke that is currently exclusive, but you know, when they make another set that needs Farm Boy Luke, that Farm Boy Luke is coming in that set, right? So there would be no expectation of exclusivity with a figure like that. And so you kind of got to measure all of that stuff. Like, will there be a Hot Tub Stormtrooper Imperial Dignitary Microfighter 2-pack, like that type of stuff? I would guess not. And so you look in the future and you say, will this Death Star retire in a year and a half and be worth a ton of money? And it's kind of a throw the dart at the board and hope to get lucky type of game to me, you know? Like, I would rather, for the trouble, just put my money in the stock market. You know, I think it's a lot more trouble for big sets like that. You know, you got to store it, and then when you sell it, you got to ship it. That's a pain in the butt too. You know, I think there's a lot, and then you pay a lot of fees on that, and then you got to pay taxes on any profits on that if you're reporting it, right? But, you know, I think there's a lot of hassle with a $1,000 set like that versus just, here's my $1,000, let me put it in the S&P 500 and let it grow at its 5 to 10% a year, or high yield savings account growing at 4% a year. But of course, the upside could be much higher. This set, like Cloud City, could triple in value over the course of 5 years. And a 300% return on your money in 5 years is really, really good. So there's some things like that out there, of course, that might make you want to do the Lego set over the easy path. So I'm never going to sit here and tell you, yes, invest, don't invest, because it's at the end of the day, it's your money, and I don't want to be responsible for it going poorly for you. But yeah, nothing like that's a guarantee. But I think it's interesting looking at what I think is the most similar release to this in the last decade with Cloud City, that the potential is there. But a lot of that depends on how it goes and if it retires in a year and a half, or if it's something Lego's going to keep out for 5 years. Like, there's a lot of questions that we can't know the answer to right now, and we won't know the answer to for a long time. So anyway, next question from Kix. He says, do you really think that the bus will come with minifigs? The Marvel logo had minifigures and the Star Wars logo didn't even get one. What's stopping them from doing the same thing this time? And the difference between the logos and these bus is the bus are a subline. You know, think of it like the helmet sets. The helmet sets are their own subline. The logo is kind of its own entity, where the logo for Marvel was built to accommodate and use minifigures as part of the fun of it. And the Star Wars one just wasn't. And so when you look at something like the bus, they're a subline, right? Like, every single one of them is supposed to conceptually be the same, versus the logos being their own weird thing. They can vary from one to another. And so I don't look at it like that. I think that the bus will include their minifigures, and hopefully, of course, that will mean in the future getting some weirder characters like Grievous, like we've talked about recently, that we don't get as much, and that we would like to see as a minifigure in a reasonably accessible set. Although pretty much every set that has included Grievous has been accessible. I wouldn't say he's not been an accessible figure. I think to say that would be wrong. Anyway, next from DRK says, what is something you believe Lego Star Wars has done consistently well for the entire theme's lifespan? Dude, I'm so worked up. I don't even want to talk good about it right now. All that talk about the minifigure stuff has me going right now. But I think the biggest thing they've done consistently well is being there, existing, right? Lego Star Wars has existed for 27 years or something now, and just having so many sets every year, year in and year out, is definitely something they have done well. There's also the fact of, like, UCS sets, at least 2 a year for like the last 15 years, UCS or MBS, but one or the other. Like, getting that type of stuff so consistently helps build your brand, helps keep people excited and engaged with it. Battle packs, despite the recent fluctuation in them, and we did have a gap year, battle packs have been pretty consistent for the last almost 20 years. There were 2 a year, there were 4 a year. Now they've gotten kind of wishy-washy. I wish they would go back to 2 a year in January for $20 each and call it good, and stop trying to screw with your customers with $45 battle packs. But, you know, I guess you got to push the envelope somewhere every once in a while, and so hopefully they'll scale back down to what we saw back in the early days with that. But yeah, their consistency is what I think they have done consistently well, or general consistency. Not in the way that, like, the figures consistently look like X, Y, or Z, or every ship is consistently the same shape and size, right? That's not the type of consistency I'm talking about. It's just the theme's literal existence on shelves, and that they have these different subcategories that they have stuck to over the years, stuff like that. The May 4th promos, stuff like that. You know, all adds up, and I think it has been something they have done well. So anyway, that's going to be it for this episode. If you guys enjoyed, hit the like button. If you have a question or topic for next episode, leave in the comments section down below, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace out.